You've seen it in the movies, you've heard all the jokes, right? Gigantic burgers, sodas the size of your head, plates just overflowing with food. It's the classic stereotype of America. But is it actually true? Well, today we're going to dig in and find out what's really going on with American portion sizes.
So let's just get right to it. Is this whole supersize America thing real, or is it just a myth? It's a question that sparks a ton of debate online, with people who live in the States and people traveling there having, well, completely different experiences.
So on one side of the argument, you've got people like Reddit user RobFace. They're basically saying, hey, I've traveled, I've eaten out, and I just don't see it. From their point of view, it's a stereotype that's been blown way, way out of proportion. But then you get the complete opposite story. Take Reddit user Kona Kathy, an American traveling abroad. They were shocked to find the portions in the Czech Republic were so huge they couldn't even finish half their meal. So for them, the stereotype was totally real, just in a completely different country. So what gives? Okay, so personal stories are one thing, but to really get to the bottom of this, we have to look past the anecdotes. We need to follow the trail of the food itself and find some hard facts. So let's take a little trip back in time, because the story of the American portion size is really a story of massive growth. Believe it or not, meals used to be a whole lot smaller. So how did we get from these modest meals to the mountains of food we often see today?
Well, this timeline really tells the story. Back in the 50s, a standard fast food meal was pretty reasonable, but then the 70s and 80s hit and things just exploded. And get this, today the portions you buy in restaurants can be 2 to 7 times bigger than what the government officially considers a standard serving. That's huge.
And if you want to see what that actually looks like, here you go. A 1950s McDonald's meal, about 590 calories. A modern, supersized version of that same meal, 1,550 calories. That is nearly 3 times the food for what's supposed to be this same meal. So how in the world does a 590-calorie meal turn into a 1,550-calorie behemoth? Well, it wasn't an accident. This growth was carefully engineered. Let's get into the psychology of value and how we were all nudged into taking a much, much bigger bite. It really all boils down to this thing called value marketing. Here's the secret. The actual food, the ingredients, they're just a tiny part of a restaurant's cost. Most of their money goes to stuff like rent, labor, and packaging. So for them, giving you a lot more food only costs them a few extra pennies. You feel like you're getting an amazing deal, and they make a bigger profit. It sounds like a win-win, right? Let me give you a perfect and kind of scary example. Let's say you're at a 7-Eleven and you upgrade your soda from a gulp to a double gulp. That choice alone adds 450 extra calories. And the cost for all those extra calories? Just 37 cents. 37 cents. That's value marketing in a nutshell. It's an offer that, from a psychological standpoint, is almost impossible to turn down. And there's another trick they use called bundling. This is where they take a single item, like a burger, and package it with high-profit sides like fries and a soda to create a combo or a value meal. The whole point is to get you to buy more than you originally planned. You've heard the question a million times, right? Would you like to make that a meal? That's bundling in action. And just by saying yes to that simple question, you can easily tack on over 600 calories to your order. It's a small question with a massive impact. So with these enormous portions being served all over the place, what happens to all the food that people can't finish? Well, this is where a really fascinating cultural divide starts to appear, especially when you start talking about leftovers. And this really captures that culture clash from the Reddit thread perfectly. In the US, the thinking is often, hey, I paid for this food, so of course I'm taking it with me. It's seen as being smart, not wasteful. But in many parts of Europe, asking for a box can feel weird, maybe even a little embarrassing. The general rule is, what you don't eat at the table stays at the table. So why is the doggy bag so common in America? It's really a mix of history and convenience. You have that waste not, want not attitude that got passed down from the Great Depression. Combine that with the fact that pretty much every home has had a fridge for decades, and then you throw in restaurants competing to give you the most value for your dollar, and suddenly taking home leftovers from a giant meal just becomes the normal thing to do. But after decades of this trend of bigger and bigger portions, maybe the biggest impact isn't on our plates at all. Maybe it's in our heads. This constant exposure to massive servings has completely warped our idea of what a normal amount of food even is. And there's actually a name for this: portion distortion. It's this slow, creeping change in our minds where we've started to see these supersized restaurant meals as the new normal. A bagel used to be about 3 ounces. Now it's often 7 ounces. But to us, it's still just one bagel. Our internal sense of scale has been totally thrown off.
And here's what's so fascinating, and honestly a little unsettling. Research shows that we tend to eat with our eyes, not our stomachs. We are cued more by the amount of food that's put in front of us than by our own internal feelings of hunger or fullness. You serve us more, we just eat more. But here is the ultimate irony in all of this. When it comes to pure enjoyment, bigger is not better. That peak moment of pleasure you get from food, that amazing flavor, it happens in the first few bites. After that, with every bite you take, the pleasure actually goes down. We keep eating, but we're enjoying it less and less. Which really leaves us with one final question to chew on. If that very first bite is the best one, the one that gives us the most pleasure, then why have we all been so convinced that we need so much more? It's something to think about, isn't it?